Alright, well, if you thought the last video was crazy, this one might just be even crazier. So, as you all probably remember, in the last episode, I continued on my grind to complete a floor 7 dungeon. And I made pretty decent progress too. Not only did I get my first 2 of 4 bone rings, but I also finally managed to complete the full Shadow Assassin set when I got the chestplate to drop after nearly 300 floor 5 runs. And today, I'm not only going to be continuing on with my quest to get all 4 of those bone rings, but I'm also going to be focusing on some of the other grinds that are going to need to be completed if I ever want to get through a floor 7 alive. With that being said though, I really don't want to spoil anything that's going to happen in today's episode, so all I'm going to say is just get ready, because it's insane. Really quickly though guys, I just want to say a massive thank you to you all for 100,000 subscribers. That is a mind-blowing number, so just thank you so much. Obviously though, I don't want to stop here, so if you guys are enjoying these videos, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And as part of my celebration for hitting 100k, I have released a special chroma edition of my hardcore cloak on the Badlion store. So if you guys like the look of it, check out the link down in the description and you can save 10% on your purchase. And last but not least, literally everything that happens in these videos is streamed over on my Twitch channel. So if you'd like to watch some of this stuff go down live, check it out. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into my journey. Alright, so when we last left off in my adventure, I had just gotten a Shadow Assassin chestplate, which was definitely a very exciting moment for me. But unfortunately, it did mean one other thing, and that was I was now totally bankrupt. You see, I had been keeping myself at exactly 6 million coins when I was doing these floor 5 runs because that's how much the Shadow Assassin chestplate costs. So when I actually got one, that means I had to spend all of my coins in order to get it. And I still needed to get 3 more Overload 1 books from floor 5 if I wanted to get both of my bone rings to Overload 3. And these Overload books can get pretty pricey, costing all the way up to 2 million coins if they're found in the bedrock chest, the most common place to find them. Which meant that it was once again time to return to my favorite activity on Skyblock, farming Netherwort. But after only like 45 minutes of farming Netherwort, I was already completely fed up with it, so I decided to change up my plan a little bit. Instead of doing S+ runs each time, I would instead only do S runs on floor 5, which would not only make the runs themselves a little bit faster, but it would also get rid of the bedrock chest entirely, meaning the most expensive Overload book I could get would be 1 million coins from the obsidian chest. And while this new strategy certainly meant that I would not be seeing Overload books as often on my runs, I was hoping that the save time would kind of counteract that, but I was very wrong. Because not only did it take me over a full hour just to see my first Overload book in the obsidian chest, but after that I went on a 2-hour plus dry streak of not getting a single Overload book. At which point it became obvious that the most time efficient way to do things was just going to be to do the S+ runs and pay 2 mil for each Overload book, even if it meant that I had to spend an extra 30 minutes to an hour farming Netherwort. And the next day, things started to turn in my favor. Not only did I manage to get an Overload book in the gold chest for 250k on one of my first runs of the day, but only 2 runs later, I got the last Overload book I needed in the bedrock chest. Meaning that I could finally enchant those first 2 bone rings I had crafted and start to get in a little bit of practice with the archer class. Unfortunately, after I enchanted the bone rings, I realized that I still needed to put the spiritual reforge on them, which was going to cost me another 1 million coins for each bone ring. So I begrudgingly returned to farming Netherwort, but it wasn't before long that I really started to go crazy and decided I needed to find another money-making method, even if it wasn't quite as good as farming wart. So I made my way over to the Dwarven Mines to do a little bit of testing because people in both my chat and on the Hypixel forums had been talking about this being a good money-making method for players who could use the bazaar and auction house, and I was hoping that maybe it would still be decent for players like myself who couldn't do those things. Unfortunately, the results I got were not good. In fact, they were so bad that I'm not even going to mention them here, and long story short, I went back to farming Netherwort. But before I applied the reforge to the bone meringues, it was once again time for the Jerry's Workshop Island to be open. And even though getting a baby Yeti pet would not be essential for me to complete a floor 7, it was still something that I had already dumped a ton of time into trying to get. So at this point, I just wanted to get one for personal accomplishment. But after once again getting crazy lucky with my Yeti rate, fishing up 6 Yetis in a span of only 3 hours of fishing, I had once again gotten 0 drops, and I was kind of starting to lose hope that this baby Yeti dream was ever going to come true for me. And after I started to near the 4-hour mark of Yeti fishing, I even ran out of my whale bait and had to switch over to ice bait, which greatly lowers the chance of fishing up a Yeti. But I decided that I would push on and fish up one last Yeti before switching back over to dungeons and testing out those bone meringues. And after fishing up this 7th Yeti of the day, something crazy happened. I thought King Laz was about to hit my Yeti, and Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god, no way! No way! No way, dude! Oh my god. Dude, you guys don't... I'm so happy right now. I can't believe it! Yes, after countless hours of Yeti fishing, I had finally gotten the elusive baby Yeti pet to drop. And to make things just that much better, it was even the epic version of the baby Yeti, which is a huge plus over the legendary because it makes it a lot easier to level up, and the legendary perk isn't even good, so basically you just want the epic pet, you don't want the legendary version. And with there now being no more reason for me to Yeti fish, it was finally time to apply those spiritual reforged stones to the bone meringues. Unfortunately, like I have mentioned quite a few times already in this video, I don't like farming netherwort, and so I had procrastinated that task and still didn't have the money I needed for these reforged stones. Thankfully, some genius in my chat had the idea of taking the hundreds and hundreds of extra dragon fragments I had stocked up from both doing the dragons themselves and from the lost adventures in dungeons, and turning those fragments into boots, which I could then turn around and sell to the NPC for 100,000 coins a pop. And while 100,000 coins per pair of boots doesn't seem like a lot, when you have as many dragon fragments saved up as I did, it adds up, and I was able to get all of the coins I needed to apply the spiritual reforge. So I not only applied the reforge to both of my bone rings, but I also decided to turn my tarantula helmet into a dungeon item to do some testing, because a few people in my chat had suggested that it might be better to use than my shadow assassin helmet once I start playing archer. On top of all of that, I also used the werewolf skin that I had fished up in the last episode to craft 3 out of the 4 werewolf armor pieces so that I could get some ferocity and be able to double hit Thorn during the boss phase. And with all of those preparations finally completed, I hopped into a floor 4 dungeon and started testing out my shiny new bone meringues. Wait, that's busted! 4 times and he's dead? Dude, that's insane. So yeah, the bone meringues were very powerful, and it was crazy to think that this was only half of the potential of the setup, considering I still had 2 more bone meringues to go before I was ready for floor 7. And this day seemingly just kept getting better and better, because on that very same run, this happened. Oh my god! What the heck? What are the odds, dude? Literally first run in so long. So yeah, kind of insane stuff right there. Unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, I was just barely getting by with money, so having to purchase a spirit bone for 1.5 million coins this early on in returning to floor 4 runs pretty much once again bankrupted me. So I took the last of the extra useless dragon fragments I had, turned them into boots, and made myself back a couple million coins. And on the next day of runs, that good luck pretty much just picked up right where it left off, as I managed to get Spirit Bone number 12. After once again going bankrupt with the purchase of this Spirit Bone though, I realized it was time to put an end to all the creative money-making methods and just stick with farming netherwort for the sake of not making this take longer than it needs to. And it was also on this day of runs that I made a very interesting discovery, because as I was discussing with my chat different ways I could get my ferocity up, somebody pointed out to me that I had a shredder I could use in my ender chest. This revelation was interesting to me because I had no idea I had a shredder. Now, you might be asking, How could you possibly not remember getting a shredder? I mean, it is a pretty rare drop, so it seems like something that you would probably remember if you got one. And the story behind it is a little bit weird, so allow me to explain. So basically, after like 5 minutes of myself and everyone in my chat trying to remember where I could have possibly gotten this shredder, we were all drawing blanks. But then I remembered that Skycrypt has a very useful feature where when you hover over an item that you own, it will tell you the date that it was obtained. So by going to their website, I was able to see that I had obtained the shredder on January 4th. And since 2 months had not yet passed since that date, that meant the VOD of me fishing it up would still be up on my Twitch channel. And when I went back and started watching the VOD, everything suddenly clicked into place. So what had happened was I was just doing a casual Yeti fishing stream, trying to get that baby Yeti pet. And I looked away from my screen for a moment and happened to fish up a Sea Emperor of all things. And while I was still looking away from my screen, somebody else in my lobby killed the Sea Emperor, so by the time I looked back to my screen, it seemed as if nothing had changed for me. But then I opened my inventory a few moments later and was very surprised to find an Emperor Skull and a Shredder in my inventory. So at first, I had assumed somebody had figured out a way to drop these items on me, and I was getting ready to drop them back on the ground because I didn't want to be known as a cheater. Fortunately, before I did that, somebody in my chat took a clip of what had happened and proved to me that it was in fact my Sea Emperor that dropped those items to me. And after being excited for a very brief moment, people in my chat also started telling me that the shredder was totally worthless, so I just dumped it away in a random backpack in my ender chest. And then fast forward almost 2 months later, and it finally had a use to me, and that's how we got to where we are now. So now that I knew the shredder was in fact mine, I returned to the floor 4 grind. And over the next couple of days, I managed to get my 13th, 14th, and 15th spirit bone, meaning that I could craft the 3rd bone meringue and improve my archer setup even more. Here it is. 5 spirit bones, 15 enchanted string, 10 enchanted bone blocks, and in 3, 2, 1, we are now officially 75% of the way to having 4 bone meringues. This is big, guys. We have come a very long way, dude. It has been a journey. Oh my god. Has it been a journey, dude? I also decided at this point that I wanted to do a test to see how much of a difference fully hot potato booking a bone meringue would make in terms of damage. So I quickly grinded up 10 hot potato books for one of my already maxed out bone meringues and went into a dungeon to compare the damage. Let's see damage. 1.4 mil with the non-hot potato booked one, okay. Hot potato booked one, 1.6 mil almost. That's like, so the hot potato books add like, what is that? Like 20% damage? That's kind of significant. I also decided that I had done way too many floor 4 runs over the past couple of days and needed a bit of a break from them. So I decided to transition over to doing some frag runs on floor 6. And if you guys aren't familiar with what a frag run is, basically you just take an alt account, or in my case, a viewer who is willing to AFK for me, while you rush to the blood room and kill the mini boss in the hopes that it will drop a fragment for you. And in my case in particular, I was on the hunt for livid fragments because these can be used to upgrade the SA armor to a higher rarity, meaning if I livid frag my entire armor set, I can get full mythic Shadow Assassin armor. Now, it does require 8 livid fragments per piece of Shadow Assassin armor to upgrade, but compared to some of the other grinds I've done on this profile, this one's pretty much going to be a walk in the park. And it was also during this grind that I realized the skeleton minions I still had up on my island were a total waste at the moment, because I already had all the enchanted bone blocks I needed to craft the remaining bone meringue. So I decided to take down these skeleton minions and instead put up gold minions as part of a little side quest I want to work on. Now, some of you may be able to guess exactly what these minions are for, but for those of you who can't, I'm gonna keep it a secret for now. It wasn't after too long though that I also got bored of doing these floor 6 frag runs and decided to move on to something else. This time I wanted to work on maxing out my 3rd bone meringue, and the first step of that was to get all 4 of the overload books I needed to get it to overload 3. I did not make the same mistakes as last time though, and decided to only do S+ runs, and if every overload book was going to cost me 2 million coins, then I guess it just is what it is. And despite the extra netherwort farming that I had to do in order to afford all these overload books, this time around the process went a lot faster. And within about 3 to 4 hours of floor 5 runs, I had gotten all 4 overload books that I needed. Last opportunity. I cannot let the doubters get away with this. My flawless trap room should have predicted an overload in this bedrock chest. Let's find out. I told you! What did I tell you? What did I tell you? What did I tell you, boys? What did I tell you, man? It's just like that little gopher, man. My flawless trap room predicted the overload book in the bedrock chest, and just like that, 4 overload 1s have been acquired for overload 3 for the 4th bone meringue. We're back down to 35,000 coins. I am now completely broke. And with that process now completed, I was just about ready to return to doing some floor 4 runs. But there was one last thing I wanted to do before that. You see, even though I now had the epic baby yeti pet in my possession, I still had not had a chance to use it. And this was because until I leveled it up to a pretty decent level, like somewhere in the mid 70s, maybe early 80s, it wasn't going to be better than my legendary blue whale pet that I was currently using. But as I'm sure those of you who play Hypixel Skyblock will be aware, leveling up fishing pets like the baby yeti is a complete nightmare, because getting fishing XP is it's a long process. So in my efforts to avoid leveling this thing up through fishing, I had the very clever idea to instead use carrot candy to try and get it to a decent level. But there was one problem with this idea, and that was that my carrot farm was only currently 1 layer, which would not be sufficient for farming 10 carrot candies. So I began work on expanding my carrot farm to 3 full layers to make it infinite. Unfortunately, one side effect of not having access to the bazaar is that I also can't get booster cookies, which means that builder's wand item that is very, very useful for building large farms, I don't have it. So I instead had to spend the next 3 hours of my life just placing dirt for these 2 layers. Thankfully, the rest of the farm building process was not too difficult for me, because I do have access to the items that make tilling, placing water, and planting seeds pretty much automated. Unfortunately though, my pain was not yet over, because what I had initially anticipated would be about maybe 2 to 3 hours of farming carrots in order to get all 10 superb carrot candies that I needed, turned into about maybe 7 to 8 hours of farming carrots. But as you guys have seen throughout this series, I do not shy away from a grind, so I put those hours in and got all 10 superb carrot candies that I needed. And with 8 hours of grueling farming torture now over, I took those 10 superb carrot candies and applied it to my baby yeti. Right here, okay guys? This is a completely clean, epic baby yeti pet. Level 1 with literally 0 XP on it. I have never done anything with this baby yeti at all. Carrot candy number 1, instantly to level 52 from just 1 carrot candy. Jesus, alright? Number 2, level 60. There we go. So you can see the difference from 1 carrot candy to the next already is exponentially smaller. So next one now, 65. So going down, but not as much as it did after the first one. Here we go. 69A. Nice, nice. Wait, how much XP does it have? Oh, I was hoping it's going to have 69,000. Very nice, very nice. All right, number 5, 72. All right, it's slowing down a lot now. 75, 77, 79, 80, and I believe this will probably be, what, 82? Level 82. There we go. Nothing else besides carrot candies got this baby right all the way up to level 82. So very similar to my blue whale. This will be like a pretty accurate comparison. So with all 10 of those candies now applied, it was time to hop into a dungeon and do the comparison between the baby yeti and the blue whale. Before I hopped into the dungeon though, I also took the opportunity to fully max out my 3rd bone ring, because for some reason, even though I had the materials laying around for like 2 to 3 days, I just hadn't gone about actually maxing it out. But once I actually got into the dungeon, I did one comparison between the two at the very beginning and also one comparison at the very end. And at the beginning, I had 158,000 EHP with the Baby Yeti and 143,000 with the Blue Whale, meaning that the Baby Yeti was about 10% better. And at the end of the dungeon, I had 340,000 EHP with the Baby Yeti and only 290,000 with the Blue Whale, meaning that the Baby Yeti at the end of dungeon was about 15% better. So thankfully, my countless hours of Yeti fishing weren't all for nothing, as the Baby Yeti did outperform the Blue Whale pet that I already had. And with all of that stuff out of the way, it was now finally time for me to start the grind for the fourth and final bone meringue. And for now, that is where my journey is going to be leaving off. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, you are a certified legend. These things take a ton of time to record and edit, so I really appreciate you watching it to the very end. And yeah, I hope to see you over on my Twitch channel where I do all of the grinding for these videos. It is a very fun and exciting time, so check it out. The link will be down in the description below. Also, if you like the look of my brand new Chroma Hardcore cloak on Badline, check it out. The link for that will also be in the description. Anyways, with all that being said, guys, thank you once again very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Peace.